Victoria Hayes slammed her fist on the conference table so hard the coffee cups rattled. "File the report today. Call Child Protective Services and tell them the boy is being neglected. I want that mansion torn apart by Friday." Bradley Cole leaned back amused. "And the maid, the black woman who's got everyone talking." Victoria's lips curled into something cruel. "Destroy her first. Make it ugly. A cleaning woman thinking she can waltz into a billionaire's world and play house. Please." She laughed sharp and cold. "By the time I'm finished with her, she'll be begging to disappear." She snatched her phone from the table and dialed without hesitation. Her voice shifted to honey-sweet concern. "Yes, hello. I need to report suspected child abuse. The Sterling estate on Piedmont Road. The father is absent and neglectful, and there's an unqualified woman, a housekeeper, I believe, caring for a disabled minor. I'm very worried about the child's safety." She hung up, twisting her engagement ring like a trophy. Bradley raised an eyebrow. "You really think this will work?" "It doesn't need to work forever. It just needs to break them." Victoria smiled. "That cleaning woman made one mistake. She made Marcus Sterling care about something again, and caring makes people vulnerable." But Victoria didn't know the truth. That cleaning woman had already done something no Stanford therapist, no elite specialist, no $2,000 an hour expert had managed in 2 years. She made Marcus Sterling's silent son speak. If this story moves you, subscribe to our channel right now and stay with us until the very end. Drop a comment telling us which city you're watching from tonight. Let's see how far this story can travel across the world. The scream ripped through the Sterling mansion like a knife through silk. Destiny Carter's hand froze mid-motion on the second-floor window, her damp cloth dripping onto the marble sill. 5 days. She had worked in this cold palace for exactly 5 days, and she had learned the rules fast. Clean quietly, stay invisible, never ask questions, and never ever go to the 5th floor. But that sound coming from above her head wasn't something she could unhear. It wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't a nightmare cry. It was pure terror, clawing its way out of a child's throat, rhythmic and desperate like an animal caught in a trap. "Miss Carter!" Mrs. Patterson's voice shot up from the stairwell below, sharp with warning. "Stay away from the upper wing. That's not your concern." Destiny didn't answer. Her feet were already moving. She climbed the stairs 2 at a time, her heart hammering against her ribs so hard she could feel it in her teeth. The screaming grew louder with each step, more frantic, more broken. The 5th-floor hallway stretched before her long and dim, every door closed except one at the very end. Flickering light pulsed through the crack, some kind of sensory projector maybe, and the screams poured out like water through a broken dam. Destiny pushed the door open. The boy couldn't have been more than 7. He sat curled on the floor in front of a bookshelf, his small body rocking violently, his forehead slamming against the wood in a sickening rhythm. Thud, thud, thud. His eyes were squeezed shut, his mouth hung open, releasing that terrible cyclical wail. No nurse, no nanny, no parent, just a child alone with his own terror. Destiny's lungs seized. She knew this. God help her, she knew exactly what she was seeing. Her little brother Jerome used to do the same thing, under the kitchen table when sounds got too loud, in the corner of their shared bedroom when the world pressed in too close. His arms wrapped so tight around his chest, she thought he'd crack his own ribs. His face wet with tears, nobody knew how to stop. Jerome, who never spoke a single word in his entire life. Jerome, who died in a hospital bed 4 years ago, while Destiny stood in a fluorescent-lit hallway arguing with an insurance clerk about paperwork. She gripped the doorframe until her fingers went white. Everything in her screamed to turn around. This wasn't her job. This wasn't her place. She was a temp worker, disposable, replaceable, one paycheck away from losing her apartment. Getting involved with this family's problems could cost her everything. But then the boy's head hit the shelf again harder, and a thin line of blood appeared at his hairline. "No." The word tore out of her before she could stop it. "No baby. No." She stepped into the room, slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded bird. She lowered herself to the carpet several feet away from him, folding her legs beneath her, making herself small and still. Her hands rested palm up on her knees, non-threatening, present but not pushing. "Hey, sweetheart?" Her voice came out barely louder than a breath. "I'm not going to touch you. I'm just sitting right here, just sitting with you." The boy didn't acknowledge her. His rocking continued violent and relentless, but something in his rhythm stuttered. A tiny hitch, a crack in the wall. Destiny lifted one hand slowly to her chest and traced a sign across her heart. Safe. Her grandmother had taught her that sign 30 years ago when Jerome was a toddler and words meant nothing to him. When the world was too bright and too loud and too much, and the only thing that could reach him was silence, shaped into meaning. The boy's rocking slowed. His eyes cracked open, just a sliver, and found her face. 1 second. Maybe 2. Then they dropped back to the carpet, and his body curled tighter. But Destiny had seen it, that flicker of recognition, that tiny spark of connection across the void. "That's right," she whispered. "You're safe now. I'm not going anywhere." She stayed perfectly still, letting the quiet do its work. 1 minute stretched into 2. The boy's breathing began to even out. His forehead stopped hitting the shelf, his fists' unclenched fingers spreading open like flowers after rain. The door behind her crashed against the wall. "What the hell are you doing in here?" Destiny spun around, her heart slamming into her throat. Marcus Sterling stood in the doorway like a storm in a designer suit. His shoulders filled the frame, his jaw was clenched so tight the muscles jumped beneath his skin, and his eyes, cold, furious, terrified, locked onto her like she was an intruder, a threat, an enemy. "I'm sorry, sir." Destiny scrambled to her feet, instinct overriding everything else. "I heard him crying. I thought he might be hurt. Who gave you permission to enter this room? No one but I. Step away from my son, now." The command left no room for argument. Destiny's muscles went rigid, but she obeyed, moving carefully aside as Marcus strode past her toward the boy. "Noah." His voice softened, but only barely. "Noah, it's Dad. Come here, buddy. Let me help you." He reached down to lift his son into his arms. The moment Marcus's hands touched Noah's body, the child exploded. The screaming came back tenfold. Noah's arms and legs flailed wildly, his small fists striking his father's chest and face, his entire body thrashing like he was being attacked. The raw panic in his voice made Destiny's bones ache. Marcus staggered backward, shock cracking through his controlled expression. He tried to adjust his grip, tried to hold on, but Noah only fought harder, his screams rising to a pitch that seemed impossible for such a small body. "What's wrong?" Marcus's voice cracked. "Why does he always, why can't I? May I try?" Destiny's words cut through the chaos like a lifeline thrown into churning water. Marcus looked at her. Really looked at her, maybe for the first time. His son thrashed in his arms. His expensive shirt was torn at the collar where small fingers had clawed. Blood from Noah's forehead smeared across his cheek. And in his eyes, Destiny saw something she recognized, something she had seen in her own mirror for years after Jerome died. Helplessness, complete and devastating. "Please," she said softly, "let me try." Marcus's grip loosened. He didn't hand Noah over, he simply stopped fighting, and the boy twisted away from him like he was escaping a fire. Destiny knelt on the carpet and opened her arms. She didn't grab, she didn't reach, she simply made herself available, a harbor in the storm. "Come here, sweetheart." Her voice was low and steady, a current beneath the chaos. "I've got you. You're safe." Noah's screaming caught in his throat. His wild eyes found her face, and something in them shifted. His body turned toward her like a compass finding north. He collapsed into her arms, his small hands fisted in her sleeve, his face buried into the curve of her shoulder. His entire body, rigid with terror, just seconds before went completely soft against her chest. The silence that followed was so sudden, so absolute, it rang in Destiny's ears like a bell. She wrapped her arms around him and began to rock gently, an instinct older than thought, something her body remembered from all those years with Jerome. She hummed a low, wordless tune, letting the vibration travel through her chest into his. "There you go," she murmured into his hair. "There you go, sweet boy. I've got you now. You're okay." Behind her, Marcus Sterling stood frozen. His arms hung limp at his sides. His face had gone pale beneath the blood smear on his cheek. He stared at his son, his silent, unreachable, broken son, clinging to a stranger like she was the only solid thing in his world. And Destiny watched something shatter behind his eyes. "How?" The word came out hoarse, scraped raw. "What did you do?" "Nothing." Destiny kept her voice soft, still swaying with Noah. "I just listened." "Listen to what?" "He doesn't talk. He hasn't said a word in almost 2 years." "He doesn't need words to communicate, Mr. Sterling. He just needs someone willing to hear what he's saying without them." Marcus blinked. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. He looked like a man who had just watched the laws of physics break. "You signed something to him," he finally said. "I saw you. Your hand on your chest." "Yes, sign language. Just one word." "What word?" "Safe." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Noah's breathing had evened out completely now, his small body heavy with exhaustion against Destiny's shoulder. "You know sign language," Marcus said. It wasn't quite a question. "Some. My brother was nonverbal autistic. He passed away 4 years ago." The words still hurt to say even now. "He was 10. Something shifted in Marcus's face. The anger drained away like water from a cracked vessel, leaving something raw and wounded underneath. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Thank you." They stood in silence for a long moment. The sensory projector had shut off automatically, leaving the room dim and still. Noah's fingers loosened their grip on Destiny's sleeve, his body going slack with the heaviness of approaching sleep. "What's your name?" Marcus asked. "Destiny Carter. I clean the East Wing." "You're not a nurse, a therapist?" "No, sir, just a cleaner." Marcus looked at his son, then back at her, and something complicated moved behind his eyes. "Can you stay just for a little longer today?" Destiny's heart stuttered. This was dangerous territory. She was supposed to be invisible. She was supposed to scrub windows and polish floors and never get noticed by anyone who mattered. But Noah's small hand had found hers in his sleep, his fingers curling around her thumb like he was afraid she might disappear. "Yes, sir," she heard herself say. "I can stay." Marcus nodded once sharply, like he was closing a deal. Then he turned and walked out of the room without another word. Destiny stayed on that floor with Noah for the next 2 hours. She didn't try to wake him or move him or do anything therapeutic. She simply sat with him, letting him sleep against her shoulder, her hand stroking slow circles on his back. When he finally stirred, blinking awake with that confused vulnerability children have after deep sleep, she smiled at him. "Hey there, sleepyhead." He didn't respond with words, but he didn't pull away either. He looked at her face for a long moment, studying her like he was memorizing something important. Then he reached out and touched her cheek, just once, soft as a whisper. Destiny's throat tightened so hard she couldn't breathe. Jerome used to do that. In his good moments, his calm moments, he would reach out and touch her face like he was making sure she was real. "I see you too, sweet boy," she whispered. "I see you." She found some blocks near the bookshelf and sat down on the carpet with Noah letting him lead. He began sorting them by color blue with blue-red with red, his small hands moving in precise, repetitive patterns. Destiny watched without interfering. When he nudged a red block toward her with his toe, she accepted it like a sacred offering. "Thank you," she said softly. She pushed a blue block back. Noah paused. He looked at the block, then at her, then back at the block. Slowly, deliberately, he picked it up and placed it in her hand. A gift, a conversation, a bridge built without words. By the time Mrs. Patterson appeared in the doorway, the sun had dropped low enough to paint the room in shades of amber and gold. "Miss Carter." The housekeeper's voice was carefully neutral, but her eyes swept over the scene with barely concealed surprise. "Mr. Sterling wants to see you in his office." Destiny's stomach dropped. Here it comes, she thought. The termination, the lecture about boundaries, maybe a threat about legal action if she talked to anyone about what she'd witnessed. She tucked Noah into a beanbag chair with a weighted blanket she'd found in the closet, making sure his stuffed bear was within reach. "I'll be back," she told him quietly. "I promise." She didn't know if he understood, but something in his eyes suggested he might. The walk to Marcus Sterling's office felt like a march to execution. Through the long corridors, past the oil paintings and crystal chandeliers, through a set of double doors into a room that probably cost more than every apartment Destiny had ever rented combined. Dark wood, leather chairs, a wall of windows overlooking grounds so manicured they looked fake, and behind a massive oak desk, Marcus Sterling, still in his blood-smeared shirt, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. "Sit down," he said, gesturing to a chair across from him. Destiny sat. She folded her hands in her lap and waited. Marcus didn't speak immediately. He tapped a pen against a legal pad, the rhythm slow and deliberate. Somewhere in the house, a grandfather clock ticked. "You handled him like someone who's done it 100 times, he finally said. "I haven't. Not with him, just with someone like him." "Your brother?" "Yes." "How did he die?" The question hit like a punch. Direct, unfiltered. The way powerful men asked things expecting answers regardless of the pain they cost. "Seizure complications," Destiny said, keeping her voice steady. "An infection that got out of control. He passed in the hospital while I was filling out insurance paperwork down the hall. I never got to say goodbye." Marcus's pen stopped moving. For a moment, something human flickered across his face. "I'm sorry." "Thank you." He set down the pen and leaned back in his chair, studying her like a problem he was trying to solve. "I've spent over $400,000 on specialists for Noah in the past 2 years, he said. "Therapists from the best programs in the country, behavioral experts, developmental psychologists, a woman who flew in from Switzerland and charged $5,000 a session." He paused. "None of them lasted more than 2 weeks. Most didn't last 2 days. Destiny said nothing. There was nothing to say. "You walked into that room with a cleaning rag in your hand," Marcus continued, "and my son fell asleep in your arms within an hour. He let you hold him. He played with you. He touched your face." His voice cracked almost imperceptibly on the last word. "He hasn't touched anyone's face since his mother died." The silence stretched between them, heavy with things neither of them knew how to say. "I don't understand it," Marcus admitted. "I don't know what you did or how you did it, but I know it's something I can't buy, and that terrifies me more than you can imagine." Destiny took a breath. "It's not magic, Mr. Sterling. It's not some special gift. It's just patience. It's just being willing to sit in the silence with him instead of trying to fix it." "That sounds simple." "Simple isn't the same as easy." Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then he stood abruptly and walked to the window, his back to her, his hands clasped behind him. "I want to make you an offer," he said to the glass. Destiny's pulse quickened. "Sir, I need someone who can connect with Noah, someone he trusts, not another stranger with credentials and a contract that expires in 2 weeks." He turned to face her. "I need you." "I'm not a nanny, Mr. Sterling. I'm not trained for—" "I'll pay you 3 times your current salary." The number hit her like cold water. "You'll have a private room in the staff wing," Marcus continued. "All expenses covered, health insurance, weekends off, and you'll never touch a mop or a cleaning rag again. 3 times her salary." Times her. Destiny's mind raced. That kind of money would mean real treatment for Grandma Ruth. No more skipped prescriptions. No more choosing between medication and groceries. No more lying awake at night wondering how she'd pay for the next doctor's visit. But she also understood what she was being asked to do. This wasn't a simple job. This was a child who had built fragile, tentative trust with her in the span of a few hours. If she accepted and failed him, if she became just another person who left, it wouldn't be a professional setback. It would be betrayal. "What if I can't do it?" she asked. "What if today was a fluke? What if I disappoint him?" Marcus's eyes met hers. "What if you don't?" The question hung in the air, weighted with something that felt like fate. Destiny thought about her grandmother Ruth, about the way she always said, "Baby, if God opens a door, don't you dare stand there arguing about the knob." She thought about Jerome, about all the years she spent learning his language, all the moments of connection that made the hard times bearable. She thought about Noah curled against her shoulder, his small fingers wrapped around her thumb like she was the only anchor in his storm. "When would I start?" she heard herself ask. "Tomorrow morning. I'll have your room ready tonight." Destiny took a deep breath. "Okay, I'll do it." Marcus crossed the room and extended his hand. She stood and shook at his grip, firm and final, sealing something neither of them fully understood yet. "Thank you, Miss Carter." "Destiny," she corrected. "If I'm going to be part of your son's life, you should probably use my name." Something that might have been a smile flickered across his face. "Destiny, then." That night, Destiny packed everything she owned into a single duffel bag and a cardboard box. It didn't take long. 30 minutes to erase 5 years of barely surviving. She called her grandmother before she left. "Grandma Ruth, it's me." "Baby girl?" The warmth in her grandmother's voice made Destiny's eyes sting. "Where you been? I was starting to worry." "I got a new job, Grandma. A real one. Live in taking care of a little boy who needs help." "Is that right?" Ruth's voice softened with understanding. "A special little boy." "Yes, ma'am. He reminds me of Jerome." Silence on the line, then gently. "You be careful, baby. Don't go breaking your own heart trying to fix what can't be fixed." "I know, Grandma. But if God put you there, you stay. You hear me? You stay until He tells you otherwise." "Yes, ma'am. I love you." "Love you too, baby girl. More than all the stars." Destiny hung up and stared at the wall of her empty apartment for a long moment. Tomorrow, everything would be different. Tomorrow she would walk into a world she didn't belong in and try to save a boy she barely knew. But tonight, she let herself hope. The next morning, Destiny stood outside Noah's nursery at exactly 9:30, her heart pounding against her ribs. What if he didn't remember her? What if yesterday's connection was just a fluke, a one-time miracle that couldn't be repeated? What if he screamed when he saw her, and she had to face the truth that she wasn't special at all, just another stranger who couldn't reach him? She pushed open the door. Noah sat on the rug near the window, bathed in morning sunlight, sorting colored blocks into precise piles. He didn't look up when she entered. "Good morning, Noah," Destiny said softly, staying near the doorway. No response. His hands kept moving. Blue with blue, red with red. Destiny crossed the room slowly and lowered herself to the floor a few feet away. Not too close, not demanding anything, just present. Minutes passed in silence. Then Noah's hand paused over a red block. He looked at it, then at Destiny, then back at the block. Slowly, deliberately, he pushed it toward her with his toe. Destiny's breath caught. She picked it up and held it carefully like something precious. "Thank you," she whispered. She pushed a blue block back. Noah's fingers closed around it. And for the first time that morning, he looked directly at her face. His eyes were deep brown and impossibly old for a 7-year-old. They held something she recognized, a wariness that came from being disappointed too many times, mixed with the faintest flicker of hope. "I'm not going anywhere," Destiny told him quietly. "I promise." He didn't respond with words, but he scooted an inch closer to her on the rug, and that was enough. The days became weeks. Destiny built routines with Noah sensory time, with kinetic sand in the morning, emotion cards after lunch, movement exercises before dinner. She learned his rhythms, his triggers, his silent language of gesture and touch. She learned that he hated the sound of vacuum cleaners, but loved the hum of the dishwasher. That he could spend hours arranging objects by color, but couldn't tolerate them being moved once placed. That he rocked when he was overwhelmed, but swayed when he was content, and knowing the difference mattered more than anything. She learned that he trusted her. It showed in small ways at first. He would look for her when she left the room. He would hand her objects, a block, a button, a leaf from the garden, like gifts he needed her to receive. He would let her brush his hair and wash his face and hold his hand when they walked through the big, echoing hallways of the mansion. And Marcus noticed. He started appearing in the nursery doorway during their sessions, watching silently, his expression unreadable. At first he just observed. Then he started asking questions. Then he started joining them on the floor. "Teach me," he said one afternoon, watching Destiny sign the word for happy to Noah. "Show me how you talk to him." Destiny looked at him surprised. "You want to learn sign language? I want to learn whatever language my son speaks." So she taught him. Basic signs at first: more stop, help, love, safe. Marcus was clumsy with his hands, his fingers stiff from years of typing contracts and shaking hands in boardrooms. But he practiced every night after Noah went to bed, standing in front of his bathroom mirror, shaping words he'd never needed before. 3 weeks after Destiny arrived, Marcus signed more during a block game, and Noah mirrored it back. The gesture was imperfect, barely recognizable, but it was there. Communication. Father to son. A bridge built across 2 years of silence. Marcus's eyes filled with tears he didn't let fall. His hands trembled. His voice, when he finally spoke, was barely a whisper. "He saw me. He actually saw me." "He's always seen you," Destiny said gently. "He just needed you to learn how to see him back." That night, Marcus invited her to walk in the garden after Noah fell asleep. The air smelled like jasmine and fresh-cut grass, and the stars were just beginning to emerge. They walked in silence for a while, side by side, their footsteps soft on the stone path. "I owe you an apology," Marcus finally said. Destiny looked at him. "For what?" "For the way I treated you that first day. For assuming you were a threat instead of seeing you were trying to help. For being so terrified of losing control that I couldn't recognize Grace when it walked through my door. You were protecting your son." "I was failing my son." His voice cracked. "I've been failing him for 2 years. Ever since Grace died, I've been gone. Not physically. I was always here in this house, paying the bills, hiring the specialists. But emotionally," he shook his head, "I checked out. I buried myself in work and deals and anything that kept me from feeling, because feeling meant remembering, and remembering meant drowning." Destiny was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Grief does that. It makes us run from the people we love most, because loving them reminds us of what we've lost." Marcus stopped walking and turned to face her. "You sound like someone who understands." "I lost my brother, my mother, my father before I was old enough to remember his face." Destiny met his eyes. "I know grief, Mr. Sterling. I know how it hollows you out and fills the empty space with something cold, and I know that surviving it isn't the same as living through it. How do you live through it? You let people in, even when it terrifies you, even when every instinct screams to keep the walls up." She paused. "You let yourself be seen." Marcus stared at her for a long moment. The moonlight caught the silver at his temples, the lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 2 years ago. "Grace would have liked you," he said quietly. "She always told me I surrounded myself with people who said what I wanted to hear instead of what I needed to hear." "What do you need to hear, Marcus?" The use of his first name hung between them, a line crossed. He didn't correct her. "That it's not too late," he whispered. "That I haven't broken him beyond repair. That I can still be the father he deserves." Destiny reached out and touched his arm. "It's not too late. It's never too late to show up." They stood there in the moonlit garden, 2 people bound by loss, beginning to find their way towards something that looked like hope. 1 week later, everything changed. It was evening. The house had settled into its quiet rhythms, and Destiny sat on the porch swing with Noah nestled against her side. His breathing was slow and peaceful, his small body warm through her sweater. Marcus had joined them, a cup of chamomile tea in his hands, sitting close enough that their shoulders almost touched. They had fallen into these evening rituals, naturally, the 3 of them together, like a family that had always existed, but was only now learning its own shape. "I used to hate silence." Marcus said, staring out at the darkened grounds. I thought it meant something was broken. That quiet was emptiness. And now, Destiny asked, now I know there's different kinds of silence. He turned to look at her. There's the silence of grief, the silence of fear, and then there's this silence that's safe, silence that holds you instead of haunting you. Safe silence, Destiny repeated softly. That's rare. You gave us that. You gave him that. Before she could respond, a sound cut through the evening air, small, hesitant, almost a breath. Da, da. Destiny froze. Marcus's mug slipped from his fingers and shattered on the porch floor. Noah stirred against Destiny's side, his eyes fluttering open, his lips moving. Dada. The word was unmistakable now, clear as a bell, the first word Noah Sterling had spoken in nearly 2 years. Marcus dropped to his knees beside the swing, his hands shaking so hard he could barely lift them. Noah. His voice broke completely. Say it again. Please, buddy. Please say it again. Noah blinked sleepily. He looked at Destiny, then at his father, and his small hand reached out to touch Marcus's face. No more words came. But the touch said everything. Marcus gathered his son into his arms and held him like the world was ending and beginning all at once. Tears streamed down his face. His shoulders shook with sobs he didn't try to hide. You did it, he whispered against Noah's hair. You found your voice, buddy. You found your way back. Destiny sat frozen on the swing, her own vision blurring. She thought of Jerome, of all the words he never said, all the silence that followed her for 4 years after he was gone. And now, here she was, watching a different story unfold. A father and son, shattered by grief, finally finding each other again, because she stayed, because she listened, because she refused to give up. Marcus looked up at her, his face wet, his eyes blazing with something fierce and vulnerable. Thank you, he choked out. Thank you for not giving up on us. Destiny couldn't speak. She just nodded, her hand pressed against her heart, feeling it break and heal at the same time. They stayed on that porch until the stars filled the sky, wrapped in a silence that wasn't empty anymore. It was full of hope, full of healing, full of a future none of them had dared to imagine. But 1,000 miles away in a glass-walled office overlooking the city skyline, Victoria Hayes stared at her phone with murder in her eyes. Her contact inside the Sterling household had just sent a message. The boy spoke tonight, first words in 2 years. The maid was there when it happened. She's becoming family. Victoria's perfectly manicured nails dug into her palm hard enough to draw blood. She picked up her phone and dialed. Bradley, it's Victoria. The situation has escalated. What do you mean? I mean that little cleaning woman just became the most important person in Marcus Sterling's life. Her voice went cold as ice. It's time to destroy her, completely. I want her name dragged through every tabloid. I want child services at that door by Friday. I want her to wish she'd never been born. And if Sterling fights back? Victoria smiled, and there was nothing human in it. Then we take everything he loves, starting with her. She ended the call and stared out the window at the glittering city below. By the time she was finished, Destiny Carter would learn what happened to people who forgot their place. And Marcus Sterling would learn that some enemies couldn't be bought off or outmaneuvered. Some enemies just wanted to watch everything burn. The joy lasted exactly 47 hours. Destiny woke that Friday morning to the sound of Noah humming in his room down the hall. Not words yet, just sounds soft and tuneless, but alive in a way that made her chest ache with gratitude. She lay in bed for a moment, letting herself believe that maybe, just maybe, things were finally going to be okay. Then the doorbell rang. Not a polite chime. A sharp, insistent buzzing that cut through the morning quiet like a warning siren. Destiny was halfway down the stairs when she heard Marcus's voice, hard and cold, in a way she hadn't heard since that first day. I don't care what your paperwork says. You're not coming into my home without my attorney present. She reached the bottom of the staircase and froze. 3 people stood in the doorway. A man in a gray suit with a clipboard, a woman in business casual with a tablet, and behind them, a uniformed officer with his hand resting casually on his belt. The man in the suit spoke with practiced patience. "Mr. Sterling, we've received a report of possible child neglect concerning your son. We're legally required to conduct a welfare assessment. If you refuse entry, we can return with a court order, but I'm sure neither of us wants this to escalate." "A report from whom?" "I'm not at liberty to disclose that information during an active investigation." Marcus's jaw tightened. "This is harassment." "Sir, we're just trying to ensure your child's safety. Surely you understand." Destiny's stomach dropped through the floor. She knew. Somehow in her bones, she knew this wasn't random. This wasn't routine. This was targeted. Marcus turned and saw her on the stairs. Something passed between them. Fear. Fury, understanding all in the space of a heartbeat. "Stay with Noah," he said quietly. "Don't let him see any of this." She nodded and turned back up the stairs, but before she could take 2 steps, the woman with the tablet called out, "Actually, we'll need to speak with everyone in the household who has contact with the child. That includes you, miss." Destiny stopped, turned, met the woman's eyes. "Carter. Destiny Carter." The woman made a note on her tablet. "And what is your role here, Miss Carter?" "I'm Noah's caregiver." "Are you a licensed child care provider?" "No, but Are you a registered nurse? A certified behavioral therapist? Do you have any formal training in caring for children with special needs?" Each question landed like a blow. Destiny felt her face heat, felt the judgment behind the clinical tone. "No," she said, keeping her voice steady. "I don't have any of those things." "I see." The woman made another note. "And how long have you been caring for the child?" "About 5 weeks. And before that, I was a cleaner here. I cleaned the East Wing." The woman's eyebrow rose almost imperceptibly. "So you went from cleaning floors to caring for a disabled child in a matter of weeks, with no qualifications, no background check, no formal agreement." "There was a background check," Marcus cut in sharply. "I had my security team run a full investigation before she took the position. Do you have documentation of that?" "Of course I have documentation. I have documentation for everything, which you would know if you'd done your job properly before showing up at my door with accusations and a police escort." The tension in the foyer was thick enough to choke on. Destiny could feel it pressing against her chest, making it hard to breathe. Then a small voice drifted down from the top of the stairs. "Mama." Everyone froze. Noah stood on the landing in his pajamas, his stuffed bear clutched against his chest, his eyes wide and confused. He was looking directly at Destiny. "Mama," he said again, and this time his voice cracked with fear. The CPS woman's head snapped toward the sound. Her eyes went wide. She looked at Destiny, then at Noah, then back at Destiny. "Did he just call you—" Destiny was already moving, taking the stairs 2 at a time. She swept Noah into her arms before anyone could stop her, holding him against her chest, shielding him from the strangers below. "It's okay, sweetheart," she murmured into his hair. "Everything's okay. I've got you." Noah's fingers dug into her sleeve. His body trembled against hers. He didn't understand what was happening, but he understood enough to be terrified. From the foyer, the woman called up. "Miss Carter, we're going to need to speak with the child." "No." Marcus's voice cut like steel. "You're not speaking to my son without his therapist present and without my attorney in the room. That's final." "Mr. Sterling, I said no. You want to push this, you get a court order. Until then, this conversation is over." He stepped back and closed the door in their faces. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus stood with his back against the door, his chest heaving, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. When he looked up at Destiny, his face was pale with rage. "Someone did this," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Someone made that call. Someone gave them enough information to show up here with accusations ready." Destiny held Noah tighter. "Who would do that?" "I don't know." His eyes were blazing. "But I'm going to find out." 2 hours later, the house was in controlled chaos. Marcus had called his attorney, a sharp-voiced woman named Sandra Griffin, who arrived with 2 associates and a briefcase full of documents. He'd called his head of security Lionel Hatch, a silver-haired man with the calm demeanor of someone who had seen far worse than this. He'd called Dr. Sarah Mitchell Noah's developmental psychologist, who came immediately when she heard what happened. Destiny sat in the corner of Marcus's study with Noah in her lap, trying to keep him calm while the adults strategized around them. He had his face buried in her shoulder, his small hands gripping her sweater like a lifeline. "The report was detailed," Sandra said, flipping through a folder. "Too detailed. Whoever filed it knew Noah's diagnosis, his history, his daily schedule. They knew Destiny's name and her previous position. This wasn't a random concerned citizen. This was someone with inside information." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Staff? Possibly. Or someone who has access to your household records." Lionel leaned forward. "I can run a sweep of all digital access points. If someone's been pulling information from your systems, I'll find the trail." "Do it." Marcus turned to Destiny. "I need you to think. Have you told anyone about this job? Anyone at all?" Destiny shook her head. "Just my grandmother, and she would never—" "What about your old co-workers, the cleaning staff?" "I haven't talked to any of them since I switched positions." Dr. Mitchell spoke up from her chair near the window. "The more pressing concern right now is Noah. He's already showing signs of regression. The stress of this morning could undo weeks of progress." As if to prove her point, Noah whimpered against Destiny's shoulder and began to rock slightly. Destiny started humming immediately, the same low, wordless tune she'd used since that first day. Noah's rocking slowed. His grip on her sweater loosened just a fraction. Sandra watched the interaction with sharp eyes. That right there is exactly what we need to document. His response to her. His trust in her. Whatever CPS thinks about credentials, they can't argue with observable results. "They'll try," Marcus said darkly. "They'll say she's unqualified, that I'm negligent for trusting my son to someone without formal training." "Then we get her trained." Sandra pulled out a tablet. "Fast-track certification programs, behavioral intervention courses. We document everything she's done for Noah and present it as supervised learning under Dr. Mitchell's guidance. Can we do that retroactively? We can frame it that way. It's not ideal, but it's defensible." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "This is insane. We're scrambling to justify something that's working. That's actually working. My son spoke for the first time in 2 years, and we're treating it like evidence in a trial." "Because that's exactly what it might become," Sandra said bluntly. "Whoever filed this report wants to hurt you, Marcus. They're using Noah to do it. And Destiny is the weak point they're targeting." Destiny felt the words like a knife between her ribs. She looked down at Noah, at his peaceful face against her chest, and something cold settled in her stomach. She was the weak point. She was the vulnerability they could exploit. Maybe she should leave. That thought had barely formed when Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his face went white. "What is it?" Sandra asked. He turned the phone around. On the screen was a tabloid headline published 30 minutes ago. "Sterling Scandal Billionaire Leaves Disabled Son in Care of Unqualified Maid." Below the headline was a photo of the mansion, and next to it somehow was a photo of Destiny, her employee badge picture from the cleaning company, blown up and grainy. "Oh my God," Destiny whispered. Marcus's hand was shaking. "They're not just trying to hurt me, they're trying to destroy her." The next 48 hours were a nightmare. The story spread like wildfire. Every tabloid, every gossip site, every social media platform picked it up and ran. The headlines got worse by the hour. "Cleaning woman seduces, grieving billionaire. The maid who would be Mother Sterling's son at risk, who is Destiny Carter." They dug up everything. Her grandmother's medical bills, her brother's death, her failed application to nursing school 6 years ago. Every struggle, every setback, every moment of poverty and desperation, all laid bare for public consumption. Anonymous commenters were merciless: gold digger, opportunist, child abuser. The words blurred together after a while, a wall of hate so thick Destiny couldn't see through it. She stopped looking at her phone after the first day. It didn't help. The attacks found her anyway in the whispers of staff members who suddenly wouldn't meet her eyes in the way the security guards looked at her when she walked through the halls, in the cold silence that fell whenever she entered a room. On the second night, she sat alone in her room, staring at her duffel bag on the bed. She should pack. She should leave before she made things worse. Marcus was already fighting on too many fronts, the business rivals circling like sharks, the CPS investigation hanging over his head, the media circus spinning out of control. The last thing he needed was to waste resources defending her. Noah would survive. He had his father now, really had him in a way he hadn't before. Marcus had learned the signs. Marcus had learned to listen. Maybe that was enough. Maybe she had done what she came to do. A knock at the door made her jump. Destiny. Marcus's voice low and worried. "Can I come in?" She wiped her eyes quickly and opened the door. He stood in the hallway looking more exhausted than she'd ever seen him. His shirt was untucked. His eyes were red-rimmed. He took one look at the duffel bag on her bed, and his expression shattered. "No," he said. "Absolutely not." "Marcus, no." He stepped into the room, his voice cracking. "You're not leaving. I won't let you." "You might not have a choice." Destiny's voice broke. "I'm making everything worse. The headlines, the investigation, the stress on Noah. It's all because of me. If I leave, maybe they'll back off. Maybe they'll stop. They won't stop." Marcus grabbed her hands. "Don't you understand? This isn't about you. It was never about you. Someone is using you to get to me. If you leave, they win. And then they'll find another way to attack another pressure point, another person I care about to destroy." His grip tightened. His eyes burned into hers. "You're not a liability, Destiny. You're the best thing that's happened to this family in 2 years. You gave me my son back. You gave me hope back. And I'll be damned if I let anyone take that away." Destiny's tears spilled over. "I don't know how to fight this kind of war." "You don't have to. That's my job." Marcus pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. "Your job is to stay. Your job is to keep being exactly who you are. Let me handle the rest." She let herself lean into him, let herself feel safe for just a moment. His heart beat steady against her ear, strong and determined. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too." His voice was rough. "But we're going to win. I promise you. We're going to win." The next morning, Lionel Hatch walked into Marcus's office with a folder that would change everything. "I found the leak," he said without preamble. Marcus looked up from his desk. Sandra and Dr. Mitchell were already in the room preparing for another strategy session. Destiny sat near the window with Noah, who was quietly arranging blocks on the carpet. "Who?" Marcus demanded. Lionel opened the folder. "Your former assistant, Sylvia Warner. She was terminated 6 months ago, but someone forgot to revoke her access to the household cloud system. Calendar entries, staff schedules, medical records. She had eyes on everything." Marcus's face went dark with fury. "Sylvia, she was the one who—" "It gets worse." Lionel slid a photograph across the desk. "She's engaged now, to Bradley Cole." The name hit the room like a bomb. Sandra swore under her breath. "Cole, as in Hawk Technologies Cole." "The same." Lionel's voice was grim. "The company that's been fighting your acquisition for the past 8 months. The company that filed an injunction last week claiming coercion in the subsidiary deal." Marcus stared at the photograph. It showed Sylvia at some charity event, a massive diamond on her finger, smiling up at a cold-eyed man in an expensive suit. "This was never about the CPS report," Marcus said slowly. "This was corporate warfare. They're using my family to break me." "They're using Destiny to break you," Sandra corrected. "She's the target because she's the heart of your household now. Take her out and Noah regresses. Noah regresses and you're distracted. You're distracted and they move on the business deal while you're not looking." Marcus slammed his fist on the desk so hard the lamp rattled. "Those bastards." "What do we do?" Destiny asked quietly. Marcus looked at her. His eyes were blazing with something fierce and protective. "We fight back," he said. "We file a countersuit, defamation, emotional damages, abuse of government agencies. We take everything they've done and we expose it publicly. That means exposing Destiny publicly too, Sandra warned. Her whole life will be under a microscope. I know. Marcus turned to Destiny. I won't do this without your permission. This is your choice. Destiny looked down at Noah, who had abandoned his blocks and crawled over to rest his head against her knee. His small hand found hers and held on. She thought about Jerome, about all the times she'd wished someone would fight for him the way she was being fought for now. I don't have anything to hide, she said. Do it. That night, after the lawyers left and Noah was asleep, Marcus found Destiny on the back porch. She sat on the swing where everything had changed, wrapped in a blanket against the cool evening air. He sat down beside her without asking permission. There's something I need to tell you, he said. She looked at him. His face was serious, almost nervous. I changed my will today. Destiny blinked. What? I named you as Noah's guardian. If anything happens to me, you'll have full legal custody. The words hit her like a wave. She couldn't breathe. Marcus, I know it's sudden. I know we haven't talked about anything like this. But after today, after seeing how they're coming after us, I realized something. He turned to face her fully. My son's safety is more important than any business deal, any corporate empire, any amount of money in any bank account. And the only person I trust to protect him if I can't is you. Destiny's eyes filled with tears. You barely know me. I know you stayed when everyone else left. I know you loved my son when I didn't know how. I know you walked into a war zone and didn't flinch. He reached out and took her hand. I know enough. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The stars emerged one by one, scattered across the dark sky like promises. They're going to come at us hard, Destiny finally said. Victoria Bradley, all of them. They're not going to stop. No, Marcus agreed. They're not. Are we going to win? He squeezed her hand. I don't know, but I know we're going to fight, together. And sometimes that's all you can do. From inside the house, Destiny's phone buzzed. She pulled it out and looked at the screen. An unknown number. A single message. You should have left when you had the chance. Now it's too late. We're going to destroy everything you love, and there's nothing you can do to stop us. See you in court. She showed the message to Marcus. His face went hard as stone. They want a war, he said quietly. Fine. I'll give them one they'll never forget. 300 miles away, Victoria Hayes raised a glass of champagne in her pristine office and smiled at the city lights below. It's done, she said into her phone. The countersuit was filed this afternoon. They're taking the bait. Bradley's voice came through smooth and confident. Perfect. Now we destroy them in public. The trial will be a circus. By the time it's over, Marcus Sterling won't have a company, a reputation, or a family left. Victoria's smile widened. And that little cleaning woman, she'll wish she'd stayed in her place. We'll make sure of it. Victoria ended the call and took a long sip of champagne. This was going to be fun. But she didn't know what Destiny Carter was made of. She didn't know about Jerome. She didn't know about all the years of fighting and surviving and refusing to break. She didn't know that some people can't be destroyed because they've already been through the fire and come out stronger. Victoria Hayes was about to learn, and the lesson would cost her everything. The courthouse steps were crawling with reporters when Marcus's car pulled up on Monday morning at 8:47 a.m. Destiny sat in the back seat, her hands clasped so tightly in her lap that her knuckles had gone white. Through the tinted windows, she could see the cameras, the microphones, the hungry faces waiting to capture her humiliation. You don't have to do this, Marcus said quietly beside her. You can wait in the car. I can have Sandra handle everything. Destiny shook her head. No, I'm done hiding. She reached for the door handle, but Marcus caught her wrist. Destiny. His voice was rough. Whatever happens in there, whatever they say about you, I want you to remember something. She looked at him. You are the bravest person I've ever known, and I'm proud to walk in there with you. Something cracked open in her chest. She blinked back the burning in her eyes and nodded once. They stepped out of the car together. The noise hit her like a physical wall. Shouted questions, clicking cameras, her name called from a dozen directions at once. She kept her eyes forward, her chin up, her hand gripping Marcus's arm as they walked through the gauntlet. "Miss Carter, are you in a relationship with Mr. Sterling?" "Destiny." "Is it true you have no qualifications to care for a disabled child?" "Mr. Sterling." "How do you respond to allegations that you've endangered your son?" Marcus's security team flanked them, creating a narrow path through the chaos. Destiny focused on putting one foot in front of the other, on breathing, on not letting them see her tremble. Then she heard it, a voice cutting through the crowd louder than the rest. "Hey, the gold-digging maid is here." "Hey, Destiny, how much did you sell your soul for?" She didn't turn, she didn't react, but something inside her hardened into steel. Let them talk, she thought. Let them say whatever they want. I know who I am. The courtroom was packed. Every seat filled every standing space, occupied reporters crammed into the back like sardines in a can. Judge Adeline Monroe sat at the bench, her silver hair pulled back severely, her expression carved from granite. Destiny took her seat at the defense table beside Marcus and Sandra. Across the aisle, Victoria Hayes sat in the front row of the gallery, her legs crossed, her smile sharp as a blade. Bradley Cole sat beside her, radiating cold confidence. And next to them, a team of lawyers so expensive, their suits probably cost more than Destiny's car. "All rise," the bailiff called. "This court is now in session, the Honorable Judge Adeline Monroe presiding." The judge's gavel came down once. "Be seated. We're here today for the matter of Sterling Dynamics versus Hawk Technologies. This court will also address the related Child Protective Services investigation as pertains to the minor child Noah Sterling." She looked at both tables. "I expect professionalism and restraint. Any outbursts will result in immediate removal. Am I clear?" "Yes, Your Honor," both sides responded. "Good. Prosecution, you may begin." The first 3 hours were technical. Corporate documents, digital records, financial statements. Destiny sat through it all, trying to follow the legal jargon, watching Marcus's face grow tighter with each passing minute. Then at 11:23 a.m., the prosecution called their first character witness, Sylvia Warner. Destiny watched Marcus's former assistant walk to the stand in designer heels and a perfectly tailored dress. She looked polished, professional, sympathetic, dangerous. "Miss Warner," the prosecution attorney began, "you worked for Mr. Sterling for how long?" 3 years. Sylvia's voice was smooth as silk. "I managed his schedule, his correspondence, his household affairs. I knew everything about his life." "And during that time, did you have occasion to observe his parenting of his son Noah?" Sylvia sighed, performing reluctance beautifully. "I did. And I have to say, it was heartbreaking to watch." "How so?" Mr. Sterling was never present, not emotionally anyway. He hired people to raise his son, nannies, therapists, specialists. Anyone he could pay to do the job he wouldn't do himself. Marcus's hand clenched into a fist under the table. Sandra put a warning hand on his arm. "And after his wife passed away," the attorney continued, "it got worse." Sylvia shook her head sadly. "He retreated completely, threw himself into work. Noah was left alone in that big house with rotating staff who didn't know him, didn't understand him. I tried to help, but Marcus wouldn't listen." "Is that why you left your position?" "Partly." Sylvia's eyes flicked toward Destiny for the first time. "But things changed when she arrived." "She being Miss Destiny Carter?" "Yes." Sylvia's tone sharpened almost imperceptibly. "A cleaning woman with no training, no credentials, no background in child development. One day she was scrubbing floors, and the next she was caring for a severely autistic child. It was reckless. It was dangerous. And I couldn't be part of it anymore." Destiny felt the eyes of the courtroom on her, the judgment, the whispers, but she didn't look away. She held Sylvia's gaze and didn't flinch. Sandra stood for cross-examination at 11:58 a.m. "Miss Warner?" Her voice was pleasant, almost friendly. You mentioned you left your position because of concerns about Noah's care, correct? That's correct. And yet you didn't file a report with Child Protective Services at that time, did you? Sylvia's smile flickered. No, I didn't think... You didn't think a child in danger warranted a report? I thought Marcus would come to his senses. I see. Sandra picked up a document from the table. Miss Warner, I have here records showing that your database access to the Sterling household systems was never revoked after your termination. Were you aware of that? The color drained from Sylvia's face. No, I wasn't. So you didn't access those systems after you left? You didn't pull calendar entries, staff schedules, medical records? Objection, the prosecution attorney snapped. Counsel is leading the witness. Withdrawn, Sandra smiled. Let me rephrase. Miss Warner, are you currently engaged to Bradley Cole, the COO of Hawk Technologies? The courtroom rippled with murmurs. Victoria's smile vanished. Sylvia's voice went tight. My personal life has nothing to do with yes or no, Miss Warner. A long pause. Yes. And Hawk Technologies is currently in litigation with Sterling Dynamics over a contested acquisition. Is that correct? I don't know anything about business matters. Really? Sandra pulled out another document. Because I have records of phone calls between your personal cell phone and Bradley Cole's office on the same day the CPS report was filed. 27 minutes of conversation to be exact. Would you like to explain what you discussed during that call? Sylvia's composure cracked. She looked toward Victoria, then Bradley, then back at the attorney. I don't remember. You don't remember a 27-minute phone call that occurred 3 hours before someone anonymously reported child abuse at the Sterling residence. Objection counsel is badgering the witness. I'll move on. Sandra's eyes never left Sylvia's face. No further questions. The judge called a lunch recess at 12:30 p.m. Destiny couldn't eat. She sat in a small conference room with Marcus and Sandra, her stomach churning, her mind racing. That was good, Sandra said, reviewing her notes. We've established the connection between Sylvia and Hawk. The jury will draw their own conclusions. It's not enough, Marcus said flatly. We need more. We need to prove they filed that report maliciously, not just that they had motive. Sandra nodded. That's where Destiny comes in. Destiny looked up. What do you mean? You're going to testify this afternoon. Her heart dropped. I thought we were trying to keep me off the stand. We were. But the prosecution is painting you as an unqualified opportunist who manipulated her way into a vulnerable family. The only way to counter that narrative is to let the court see who you really are. Sandra leaned forward. You need to tell your story, Destiny. All of it. All of it, Destiny repeated quietly. Jerome, your grandmother, the circumstances that led you to that mansion, why you stayed. Sandra's voice softened. The truth is your weapon. It's the only one they can't defend against. Destiny looked at Marcus. His eyes were steady on her face. You can do this, he said. I know you can. She took a breath, let it out slowly. Okay, she said. I'll do it. At 2:15 p.m., Destiny Carter took the stand. Her hands were trembling as she placed them on the Bible. Her voice shook slightly as she swore to tell the truth. But when she sat down in the witness chair and faced the packed courtroom, something settled inside her. She had spent her whole life being overlooked, being dismissed, being told she wasn't enough. Today they would hear her. Sandra approached slowly. Miss Carter, can you tell the court how you came to work at the Sterling residence? Destiny took a breath. I was hired through a temp agency, cleaning work. I needed the money to help pay for my grandmother's medical bills. She raised me after my parents died, and she'd been sick for a while. I was working 2 jobs trying to keep up. And how did you first encounter Noah Sterling? I heard him screaming. The memory rose up vivid and sharp. It was my 5th day. I was cleaning windows on the 2nd floor when I heard this sound coming from upstairs. From the floor everyone said was off limits. And what did you do? I went up there. Destiny's voice steadied. I know I wasn't supposed to, but that sound, I knew what it was. I'd heard it before. From whom? My brother, Jerome. Her throat tightened. He was nonverbal autistic. He used to make that same sound when he was overwhelmed, when the world got too big and too loud and he didn't have words to tell anyone how scared he was. The courtroom had gone silent. Even the reporters had stopped scribbling. "What happened when you found Noah?" Sandra asked gently. He was alone, rocking on the floor, hitting his head against a bookshelf. There was blood on his forehead. No one was with him. No nurse, no nanny, nothing. Destiny's voice cracked. He was just a little boy, terrified and alone, and nobody came. "What did you do?" I sat down, not too close. I made myself small and quiet and safe, and I signed to him. One word. The word my grandmother taught me to use with Jerome when nothing else worked. What word? Safe. Destiny touched her chest, making the sign without thinking. I told him he was safe. "And what happened then?" He stopped screaming. He looked at me, and then he reached out. Her voice broke. He reached out like he'd been waiting his whole life for someone to see him. A woman in the gallery was crying softly. The judge's expression had shifted, something human breaking through her professional mask. Sandra let the moment breathe before continuing. "Miss Carter, the prosecution has suggested that you're unqualified to care for Noah, that you manipulated your way into this family for personal gain. How do you respond to that?" Destiny looked directly at Sylvia Warner, then at Victoria Hayes, then at the cameras at the back of the room. "I grew up poor," she said quietly. "I know what it's like to be hungry, to wear clothes from donation bins, to watch your grandmother work 3 jobs and still not have enough. I know what it's like to be invisible, to have people look right through you like you don't exist." She paused, collecting herself. "My brother Jerome never spoke a word in his entire life, but he was the smartest, most loving soul I ever knew. He taught me that communication isn't just about words, it's about presence, it's about patience, it's about being willing to sit in someone's silence with them until they feel safe enough to let you in." Her voice strengthened. "I didn't take this job to manipulate anyone. I took it because a little boy needed someone who wouldn't give up on him, and I stayed because I made him a promise, and I don't break promises. Not to children, not ever." The prosecution attorney stood for cross-examination at 2:47 p.m., his smile sharp and predatory. "Miss Carter, you mentioned your brother passed away. I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you." "He died in a hospital, correct, while you were there?" Destiny's stomach clenched. She knew where this was going. "Yes. In fact, you were filling out insurance paperwork when he passed. You weren't in the room with him." The words hit like a slap. "That's correct." "So the brother you claim taught you everything about caring for nonverbal children, you weren't even with him when he needed you most." Objection. Sandra was on her feet. Counsel is being deliberately cruel, and the question has no relevance to— "I'll allow it," the judge said quietly. "But tread carefully, counselor." Destiny's hands were shaking, but she looked the attorney in the eye and answered, "I wasn't with him because I was fighting with an insurance company that didn't want to cover his care. I was trying to save his life with paperwork because that was the only weapon I had." Her voice trembled but didn't break. "And yes, I've carried that guilt every single day since. It's why I will never leave another child alone when I can help them. It's why I stayed with Noah when everyone else said to walk away." The attorney's smile faltered. "No further questions," he said tersely. The turning point came at 3:23 p.m. Sandra called her final witness, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, Noah's developmental psychologist. Dr. Mitchell took the stand with the calm authority of someone who had testified in dozens of cases. Her credentials were impeccable, her reputation unassailable. "Dr. Mitchell," Sandra began, "you've been working with Noah Sterling for approximately 18 months, correct?" "That's correct." "Can you describe his condition when you first began treating him?" Noah presented with severe social withdrawal, frequent meltdowns, self-injurious behaviors, and complete nonverbal communication. He had not spoken since his mother's death and showed no signs of progress despite multiple interventions. "And how would you describe his condition now?" Dr. Mitchell smiled slightly. "Remarkable improvement. He's speaking again. Not fluently, not consistently, but he's using words. He's initiating physical contact. His meltdowns have decreased by over 70%. His attachment security has improved dramatically. To what do you attribute this change? Dr. Mitchell looked directly at Destiny. To Miss Carter, unequivocally. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. I've worked with dozens of specialists, therapists, and caregivers over my career, Dr. Mitchell continued. I've never seen anyone connect with an autistic child the way Destiny Carter does. She has an instinct that can't be taught, a patience that can't be manufactured, and a genuine love that the child responds to on a level I can only describe as profound. In your professional opinion, is Miss Carter qualified to care for Noah? Qualifications are pieces of paper. What Miss Carter has is far more valuable. She has the ability to make a child feel safe. In my professional opinion, she's the best thing that's ever happened to Noah Sterling. The prosecution's cross-examination was brutal but ineffective. Dr. Mitchell deflected every attack with clinical precision and unwavering confidence. By the time she stepped down, the tide had clearly turned. At 4:15 p.m., Judge Monroe called a brief recess. Destiny was heading to the conference room when she felt someone grab her arm. She turned and found herself face-to-face with Victoria Hayes. You think you've won? Victoria's voice was barely above a whisper, her perfectly made-up face twisted with hatred. You think your little sob story changes anything? Destiny pulled her arm free. Get away from me! You're nothing. Victoria stepped closer. You're a cleaning woman who got lucky, and when this is over, when Marcus realizes what a liability you are, he'll throw you away just like he throws away everyone who stops being useful. You don't know anything about him. I know he's weak. I know he let his wife die and his son go crazy because he couldn't handle anything messy or emotional. And I know that whatever you think you have with him, it's built on sand. Victoria's smile was poisonous. He'll choose his company over you, his reputation over you, his comfortable life over you, because that's what men like him do. Destiny felt the anger rising in her chest, hot and dangerous, but she didn't let it show. Instead, she leaned in close, her voice steady. You want to know the difference between us, Victoria? Victoria's eyes narrowed. You think love is a weakness, something to exploit, something to use. Destiny straightened. But love is the only thing that ever made anything in this world worth fighting for. And you're so busy trying to destroy it, you'll never understand what you're missing. She turned and walked away without looking back. Behind her, Victoria's face contorted with fury. The final arguments came at 4:47 p.m. Sandra stood before the court, her voice ringing with conviction. Your Honor, what we've seen today is not a case of child neglect. It's a case of corporate sabotage. Hawk Technologies, through their COO Bradley Cole and his fiancée Sylvia Warner, systematically weaponized the child welfare system to attack a business rival. They filed false reports. They leaked private information to the press. They attempted to destroy an innocent woman's reputation because she represented something they couldn't buy or control. She gestured toward Destiny. Destiny Carter is not a gold digger. She's not an opportunist. She's a woman who heard a child screaming and refused to walk away. She's a woman who lost her own brother and channeled that grief into helping someone else's son. She's living proof that credentials don't matter as much as compassion, that degrees don't matter as much as dedication. Sandra turned back to the judge. We're not asking for your pity. We're asking for justice. Dismiss these false allegations. Hold the responsible parties accountable, and let this family heal. The judge was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. I've heard enough. I'm prepared to rule. The courtroom held its breath. Regarding the Child Protective Services investigation, I find insufficient evidence of neglect and substantial evidence that the original report was filed maliciously. The investigation is dismissed with prejudice. Relief crashed through Destiny like a wave. Regarding the defamation claims against Hawk Technologies and its agents, I find compelling evidence of deliberate interference, invasion of privacy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. This case will proceed to full trial, but I am ordering immediate injunctive relief. All parties associated with Hawk Technologies are barred from any further contact with the Sterling family or dissemination of private information. Victoria's face went white. The judge's gaze swept the courtroom landing finally on Destiny. "Miss Carter, I want to say something to you directly." Destiny's heart stopped. "I've presided over hundreds of cases involving children in my career. I've seen every kind of caregiver from the credentialed to the criminal. And I can tell you without hesitation that what you demonstrated on that stand today, what Dr. Mitchell described in her testimony, is rarer than any degree or certification." The judge's voice softened almost imperceptibly. "You walked into a broken family and helped them find each other again. The court recognizes you not just as a witness, but as a protector. Don't let anyone make you feel ashamed of that." Destiny couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her face as Marcus grabbed her hand under the table and squeezed. The gavel came down. "Court is adjourned." The moment they stepped outside the courthouse at 5:32 p.m., the reporters swarmed again, but this time the questions were different. "Miss Carter, how does it feel to be vindicated? Destiny, what's next for you and the Sterling family? Mr. Sterling, do you have a statement?" Marcus stepped forward, one arm around Destiny's shoulders. "I have one thing to say," he announced. "Destiny Carter saved my son's life. She gave him back his voice, and anyone who tries to hurt her, who tries to diminish what she's done, will have to go through me first." He looked down at her, and something in his eyes made her breath catch. "She's family," he said simply, "and we protect family." The drive home was quiet. Destiny sat in the back seat, exhausted beyond words, watching the city lights blur past the window. Marcus's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen and his expression hardened. "What is it?" Destiny asked. He turned the phone toward her. A news alert. Hawk Technologies, stock plummets after courtroom scandal. CEO calls emergency board meeting. "It's starting," Marcus said quietly. "They're going to pay for what they did." Destiny should have felt triumphant. She should have felt vindicated, but all she felt was tired. "Is it over?" she asked. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he reached across the seat and took her hand. "The hard part is," he said. "Now comes the good part." When they arrived home at 6:15 p.m., Mrs. Patterson met them at the door with tears in her eyes. "Noah's been asking for you," she told Destiny. "Both of you. He's been signing your names over and over." Destiny didn't wait. She ran up the stairs, her exhaustion forgotten, her heart pounding. Noah was sitting on his bed, his stuffed bear clutched against his chest. The moment he saw her in the doorway, his face transformed. "Mama," he said, clear as a bell. "Mama home." She crossed the room in 3 steps and gathered him into her arms, holding him so tight she could feel his heartbeat against her chest. "Yeah, baby," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Mama's home, and I'm never leaving again." Marcus appeared in the doorway. Noah looked up and reached out one small hand. "Dada," he said. "Dada home too." Marcus knelt beside the bed and wrapped his arms around both of them, his face buried against Destiny's shoulder, his body shaking with silent sobs. 3 people who had found each other in the wreckage of grief and loss, holding on like they would never let go. Outside, the stars emerged one by one. Inside, a family was born. The week after the trial was supposed to be peaceful. It was anything but. At 7:23 a.m. on Tuesday, Marcus's phone rang with news that sent shockwaves through the business world. Hawk Technologies' board of directors had called an emergency meeting. By 9 a.m., Bradley Cole had been removed as COO. By noon, the company's stock had dropped another 18%. But Victoria Hayes wasn't finished. The text came to Destiny's phone at 2:47 p.m. while she was helping Noah with his afternoon sensory exercises. "You won the battle. You haven't won the war. Enjoy your little family while it lasts. I always get what I want. Always." Destiny stared at the screen, her blood running cold. She should have felt safe. The court had ruled in their favor. The investigation was dismissed. But something in those words made her skin crawl. She showed the message to Marcus that evening. His face went hard as stone. "She's desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. Or they do something dangerous." Marcus looked at her. "I won't let her hurt you. I won't let anyone hurt you." "It's not me I'm worried about." Destiny glanced toward the stairs toward Noah's room. "It's him." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I'll double the security. No one gets near this house without clearance." But even as he said it, Destiny could see the fear in his eyes. The same fear she felt. Because they both knew that some threats couldn't be stopped by security guards and alarm systems. Some threats came from the darkness inside people's hearts. The next morning at 6:15 a.m., Destiny woke to the sound of her grandmother's ringtone. She grabbed the phone, her heart already racing. Grandma Ruth never called this early unless something was wrong. "Grandma, what is it? What happened?" "Baby girl." Ruth's voice was trembling. "Someone came to my house last night. They left something on my porch." Destiny's blood turned to ice. "What did they leave?" "Pictures. Pictures of you and that little boy. And a note." Ruth's voice cracked. It said, "If you don't leave that family, they'll make sure I never walk again." Destiny couldn't breathe. The room spun around her. "Grandma, listen to me. Don't open the door for anyone. Don't answer any calls from numbers you don't recognize. I'm sending someone to get you right now." "Baby, what have you gotten yourself into?" "I'll explain everything. Just stay safe. Please, Grandma. Please stay safe." She hung up and ran to Marcus's room, not caring about propriety or boundaries. She pounded on his door until he opened it, hair disheveled, eyes alarmed. "Destiny, what's wrong?" "They went after my grandmother." The words came out in a rush. "Victoria. It has to be Victoria. She sent someone to threaten my grandmother." Marcus's face transformed. The sleepy confusion vanished, replaced by something cold and lethal. "Get dressed," he said. "We're bringing her here, now." By 9:30 a.m., Grandma Ruth was installed in a guest room on the second floor of the Sterling mansion, surrounded by more comfort than she'd ever known in her 73 years of life. She sat on the edge of the bed, looking around at the silk curtains and antique furniture with wide eyes. "Lord have mercy," she murmured. "This room is bigger than my whole apartment." Destiny knelt beside her, holding her weathered hands. "I'm so sorry, Grandma. I never meant for any of this to touch you." "Hush now." Ruth's voice was firm despite her fear. "I didn't raise you to apologize for doing the right thing." She looked up at Marcus, who stood in the doorway. "And you must be the man my granddaughter's been helping." Marcus stepped forward. "Mrs. Carter, I can't tell you how sorry I am that you've been dragged into this. I promise you, whoever did this will face consequences." Ruth studied him with sharp eyes that had seen decades of hardship and survival. "Pretty words from a rich man. I've heard plenty of those in my time." "Grandma," Destiny said warningly. "No, let her speak." Marcus moved closer. "You have every right to be skeptical, Mrs. Carter. Men in my position often make promises they don't keep. But I need you to understand something." He crouched down so he was at her eye level. "Your granddaughter saved my son's life. She gave me back something I thought I'd lost forever. I would burn my entire empire to the ground before I let anyone hurt her or you." Ruth was quiet for a long moment, searching his face. Then something in her expression softened. "Well," she said finally, "at least you look her in the eye when you say it. That's more than most." A small voice came from the doorway. "Grandma?" Everyone turned. Noah stood in the hall, his stuffed bear clutched against his chest, his eyes wide and curious. Ruth's hand flew to her heart. "Oh my, is this the little one?" Noah walked slowly into the room, his gaze fixed on Ruth's face. He stopped a few feet away and tilted his head, studying her the way he studied everything with intense, quiet focus. Then he signed one word: safe. Destiny's throat closed up. It was the same sign she'd used with him that first day, the same sign her grandmother had taught her to use with Jerome. Ruth's eyes filled with tears. "You taught him that?" "Yes, ma'am." Ruth reached out slowly, giving Noah time to pull away if he wanted, but he didn't. He stepped closer, close enough for her trembling fingers to touch his cheek. "Hello, sweet boy," Ruth whispered. "I'm Destiny's grandmother. You can call me Grandma Ruth if you like." Noah considered this for a moment. Then he signed again. Safe. And then haltingly, he spoke aloud. Safe, Grandma. Ruth broke down completely, then pulling the boy into her arms as gently as if he were made of glass. Destiny grabbed Marcus's hand and held on, watching two pieces of her world come together in a way she never could have imagined. At 3:15 p.m. that same day, Lionel Hatch walked into Marcus's office with a folder that changed everything. "We found her," he said without preamble. Marcus looked up from his desk. "Victoria. She's been staying at a hotel downtown under an assumed name, but that's not the interesting part." Lionel opened the folder. "We traced the threat against Mrs. Carter. It wasn't just intimidation. Victoria hired someone, a man named Raymond Cross. Professional intimidator. He has a record assault stalking witness tampering. He's the one who went to Mrs. Carter's home." Destiny felt her stomach turn. "She hired someone to threaten my grandmother. It gets worse." Lionel pulled out another document. "Cross has been surveilling this property for the past week, taking photos, noting security rotations. He's been building a dossier." Marcus's face went white with rage. "She's planning something. That's my assessment. Whatever she's planning, it's imminent. Can we stop her? If we move fast, I've already contacted the FBI. This is federal now, crossing state lines to threaten witnesses' conspiracy to commit assault. Victoria Hayes is looking at serious prison time." Marcus stood. "Do it. I want her arrested before she can make another move." "There's one complication." Lionel hesitated. "To make the charges stick, we need Mrs. Carter to testify. About the threat, about the photos, everything." All eyes turned to Ruth, who had been listening from the doorway with Destiny beside her. The old woman straightened her spine. "You tell me where to go and what to say. I've faced worse than some fancy woman with too much money and not enough sense." Destiny squeezed her grandmother's hand. "Grandma, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do." Ruth's voice was steel. "That woman tried to scare me. She tried to use me to hurt you. Well, Ruth Carter doesn't scare easy, and she doesn't let her family fight alone." She looked at Marcus. "When do we start?" The arrest happened at 6:47 p.m. Destiny watched the news coverage from the living room, Noah curled against her side, Marcus standing behind the couch with his hands on her shoulders. Victoria Hayes, former executive assistant and fiancée of disgraced Hawk Technologies COO Bradley Cole, was taken into custody this evening on federal charges, including conspiracy to commit assault, witness intimidation, and stalking. Sources say the arrest stems from threats made against family members of Marcus Sterling, the tech billionaire currently embroiled in a lawsuit against Hawk Technologies. The footage showed Victoria being led out of the hotel in handcuffs, her perfect hair disheveled, her designer clothes wrinkled. She was screaming something at the cameras, her face twisted with rage, but the audio was muted. "It's over," Marcus said quietly. "It's finally over." But Destiny couldn't stop staring at Victoria's face on the screen, at the hatred burning in her eyes, at the way her mouth formed words that looked like curses. "She's not going to stop," Destiny whispered. "Even from prison. She's not going to stop hating us." Marcus knelt beside her, turning her face toward his. "Then let her hate. Let her rage. Let her spend the rest of her life choking on her own bitterness." His thumb brushed her cheek. "We're going to be too busy being happy to notice." Noah stirred against Destiny's side. "Happy," he repeated softly. "Mama, Dada, happy." Marcus's eyes filled with tears he didn't bother hiding. "Yeah, buddy. Happy. Finally happy." The days that followed were like learning to breathe again. At 8:30 a.m. on Saturday, Destiny found Marcus in the kitchen attempting to make pancakes. Flour covered the counter. Batter dripped down the cabinet doors. The smoke alarm was making ominous clicking sounds. "What are you doing?" she asked, caught between horror and laughter. "Making breakfast." He gestured at the chaos. "Grace used to do this every Saturday morning. Noah loved it. I thought maybe—" He trailed off, looking defeated. Destiny stepped up beside him and took the spatula from his hand. "First of all, the heat's too high. Second, you put way too much batter in the pan. Third—" She looked at his flour-covered face, and burst out laughing. "Third, you've got more ingredients on yourself than in the bowl." "I never claimed to be a chef." "No, you claim to be making pancakes. There's a difference." Noah appeared in the doorway in his pajamas, drawn by the commotion. He looked at the mess, then at his father, then at Destiny, and then he did something he'd never done before. He laughed, not just a smile, not just a giggle, a real full laugh that bubbled up from somewhere deep inside him and filled the kitchen with joy. Marcus froze, spatula still in hand, tears springing to his eyes. "He's laughing," he whispered. "He's actually laughing." "Of course he's laughing." Destiny grinned. "You look ridiculous." Noah walked over to his father and reached up. Marcus knelt down, and Noah touched the flower on his cheek. "Silly Dada," Noah said clearly. "Silly." Marcus grabbed his son and held him so tight, Destiny thought he might never let go. At 11:15 a.m. that same day, Ruth emerged from her room and declared that if anyone was going to teach this family how to cook, it was going to be her. Within an hour, the kitchen had been transformed. Ruth stood at the stove directing operations like a general commanding troops. Marcus chopped vegetables under her watchful eye. Destiny kneaded dough for biscuits. And Noah sat at the counter carefully stirring a bowl of batter with intense concentration. "More wrist, less elbow," Ruth told Marcus as he attacked an onion. "You're not punishing it, you're preparing it." "I've negotiated billion-dollar deals," Marcus muttered. "How is an onion this difficult? $1 billion won't help you if you cut your finger off. Slower, gentler." Destiny caught Noah's eye and winked. He smiled back, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. This, she thought, this is what family feels like. At 2:30 p.m., Marcus asked Destiny to walk with him in the garden. They strolled through the roses in silence for a few minutes, the afternoon sun warm on their faces. Finally, Marcus stopped beside a stone bench and turned to her. "I need to tell you something." Destiny's heart skipped. "What is it?" "I've been working with my lawyers on something. A proposal." He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. "This isn't what it looks like. It's too soon for—" He took a breath, steadying himself. "Just read it." Destiny opened the envelope and unfolded the document inside. Her eyes scanned the legal language, trying to make sense of it. Then she understood. "Marcus, this is joint custody papers." His voice was rough. "Legal guardianship. If anything ever happens to me, you'll have full rights to Noah. Not just the arrangement we discussed before. Official. Permanent. Unbreakable." Her hands were shaking. "You're giving me legal rights to your son. I'm recognizing what already exists." He stepped closer. "You're his mother, Destiny. Not by blood, but by bond. By love. By every moment you've spent showing him he matters." His eyes were bright with emotion. "I want the world to know that. I want it written down and sealed and impossible to take away." Destiny couldn't speak. The tears came too fast, too hard. Marcus caught her as her knees buckled, holding her up, holding her together. "Is that a yes?" he asked softly. She nodded against his chest, unable to form words, her whole body shaking with sobs that weren't grief this time, but something else entirely. Relief, gratitude, love. At 5:45 p.m., Ruth called everyone to the dining room for the first real family dinner any of them had experienced in years. The table was laden with food, fried chicken, collard greens, macaroni and cheese, cornbread, sweet potato pie. Ruth had spent the entire afternoon cooking, refusing all help except for the small tasks she assigned to keep everyone occupied. "This is incredible," Marcus said, staring at the spread. "I haven't seen a meal like this since—" He stopped, his throat tightening. "Since Grace," Ruth finished gently. "Destiny told me about her. She sounds like she was something special." "She was." "Then let's honor her." Ruth raised her glass of sweet tea. "To Grace, who loved this boy first, to the family she started, and to the family that's growing." They all raised their glasses. Noah lifted his sippy cup and clinked it against Marcus's glass. "Grace," he said softly. "Mama Grace." Every adult at the table froze. Marcus's face crumpled. You remember her?" Noah nodded slowly. "Pretty mama, singing mama." He touched his chest. "Heart mama." Marcus pushed back from the table and knelt beside his son's chair, tears streaming down his face. "Yeah, buddy, heart mama. She loved you so much. She still does." Noah reached out and touched his father's wet cheek. "Sad dada. Happy sad buddy. Happy and sad at the same time. Because I miss her, but I'm so grateful I have you. And Destiny. And Grandma Ruth." He looked around the table at the people who had somehow become his family. "I'm so grateful for all of you." Ruth wiped her eyes with her napkin. "Well, if we're all going to cry, we might as well do it over good food. Eat up before it gets cold." The meal lasted for hours. They talked and laughed and shared stories. Marcus told them about meeting Grace in college, about their first date at a terrible Italian restaurant, about the day Noah was born. Ruth told them about Destiny's mother, about Jerome, about the grandmother who taught her to cook these very recipes. Destiny told them about her dreams, her fears, her hopes for the future. And Noah listened to it all, his eyes bright, his small hand occasionally reaching out to touch whoever was speaking, as if confirming they were real. At 9:30 p.m., after Noah had been tucked into bed, Marcus found Destiny on the back porch. She sat on the swing where everything had changed, wrapped in a blanket against the cool night air. He sat beside her without asking close enough that their shoulders touched. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what? For everything. For staying when you could have left. For fighting when you could have run. For loving him when you had every reason to protect your own heart." "I didn't have a choice." Destiny looked at him. "From the moment I saw him on that floor hurting and alone, I knew I couldn't walk away. It would have broken something inside me." "That's exactly what I mean." Marcus turned to face her. "Most people would have walked away. Most people would have prioritized their own safety, their own comfort. But you saw a child in pain, and you ran toward him, not away. That's not normal Destiny. That's extraordinary. It's just love. There's no just about it." His hand found hers in the darkness. "Love is the hardest thing in the world. It makes you vulnerable. It opens you up to being hurt. Most people spend their whole lives running from it. Then most people miss out on the best part of being alive." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "What is the best part for you?" Destiny thought about it. "Moments like this, sitting in the quiet with someone who sees you. Not the version you show the world, but the real you. The messy, scared, hopeful you." She squeezed his hand. "Being seen and not running. Being known and not hiding." "I see you," Marcus said softly. "I know." She looked at him, and something shifted in the air between them. "I see you too." The kiss when it came was gentle, tentative, a question rather than an answer. Marcus's hand cupped her face, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. Destiny leaned into him, letting herself feel safe, letting herself believe that maybe, just maybe this was real. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were trembling. "I wasn't planning to do that," Marcus admitted. "Neither was I." Is this okay?" Destiny smiled, the first truly unburdened smile she'd allowed herself in weeks. "It's more than okay. It's exactly right." At 7:15 a.m. the next morning, Ruth cornered Destiny in the kitchen. "I saw you two on that porch last night." Destiny nearly dropped her coffee cup. "Grandma." "Don't grandma me, I've got eyes." Ruth's expression was serious, but there was a warmth beneath it. "You love him." It wasn't a question, but Destiny answered anyway. "Yes, I think I do." "And the boy. He's already my son, in every way that matters." Ruth nodded slowly. "Then I'm only going to say this once, and then I'm done." She took Destiny's hands. "Don't let fear steal what God's giving you. I watched your mother do that. She was so scared of being hurt, she pushed away everyone who tried to love her. Don't make her mistake." "I won't, Grandma, I promise." "Good." Ruth patted her cheek. Now help me make breakfast. That man doesn't know a spatula from a spoon, and that boy needs feeding. At 10:30 a.m., Judge Monroe's office called. Marcus took the call in his study, his face cycling through surprise, disbelief, and finally something like awe. When he hung up, he found Destiny in the living room with Noah. "That was Judge Monroe's clerk," he said. "She wants to meet with you, privately." Destiny's stomach dropped. "Why is something wrong?" "The opposite." Marcus shook his head in wonder. "She's nominating you for the state's Child Welfare Advisory Board. She thinks your experience, both personal and what you've been through with Noah, could help shape policy for children like him." Destiny stared at him. That's incredible, world-changing, exactly what you deserve." "Terrifying," she finished. "I'm not qualified for something like that." "According to Judge Monroe, you're more qualified than anyone with a degree." Marcus crossed the room and knelt beside her. "She saw what I see, what everyone who spends more than 5 minutes with you sees. You have a gift, Destiny, not just for Noah, but for children everywhere who get overlooked by a system that doesn't know how to hear them." "I don't know if I can." "You've been saying that since the day I met you." He smiled. "And then you do it anyway, every single time." Noah looked up from his blocks. "Mama help," he said clearly. "Mama help kids." Destiny looked at her son because that's what he was. Now her son, and felt something click into place inside her chest. Purpose, real true purpose. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll do it." At 3:00 p.m. on Wednesday, Destiny walked into Judge Monroe's chambers alone. The judge sat behind her desk, glasses perched on her nose, a folder open in front of her. She looked up when Destiny entered and smiled. "Miss Carter, thank you for coming." "Thank you for seeing me, Your Honor." "Sit, please." Judge Monroe gestured to a chair. "I'll get right to the point. What I witnessed in that courtroom wasn't just testimony. It was truth. Raw, painful, beautiful truth. And it made me realize something I've known for a long time but never had the words for." She leaned forward. "The child welfare system is broken, Miss Carter. Not because of bad intentions, but because it was designed by people who've never lived through what it's supposed to address. We have policies written by bureaucrats implemented by overworked caseworkers, affecting children who never get to speak for themselves." "Yes, ma'am, I know. I'm sure you do." Judge Monroe's eyes softened. "That's why I want you on the advisory board. Not despite your lack of formal credentials, but because of it. You bring something no degree can teach: lived experience. You know what it's like to be invisible. You know what children like Noah need because you loved someone like him. You are the voice that system is missing." Destiny's hands were trembling. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes." Judge Monroe slid a document across the desk. "Say yes, and help me change things. One policy at a time, one child at a time." Destiny looked at the document, at the seal at the top, at the blank line, waiting for her signature. She thought about Jerome, about all the times the system had failed him, about the paperwork she was filling out when he died, and she thought about Noah, about the boy who had found his voice because someone finally listened. She picked up the pen. "Where do I sign?" At 6:30 p.m. That evening, the Sterling household gathered in the living room for what Marcus called a family meeting. Ruth sat in the armchair by the fireplace, her Bible in her lap. Noah sat on the floor, with his blocks occasionally looking up to make sure everyone was still there. Destiny and Marcus sat on the couch closer than they'd ever sat before, their hands intertwined. "I want to make something official," Marcus began. "I've been thinking about it for a while, but after everything that's happened, I don't want to wait anymore." And Destiny's heart started pounding. "Marcus, what?" "Not that." He smiled at her panic. "Not yet, anyway. This is about us, all of us, what we're building here." He turned to Ruth. "Mrs. Carter, Ruth, I'd like you to stay, permanently, not as a guest, but as family. This is your home now if you want it." Ruth's eyes widened. "Son, I can't." "You can, and I hope you will. Noah needs his grandmother, Destiny needs her anchor, and I—" He paused, his voice catching. I need someone to remind me what real food tastes like and to tell me when I'm being an idiot." Ruth laughed, wiping her eyes. "Well, that'll be a full-time job. Then you'll never be bored." Ruth looked at Destiny, something passing between them that didn't need words. "All right," Ruth said finally, "but I'm not wearing fancy clothes, and I'm not learning to speak French. Wouldn't dream of asking." Noah stood up and walked over to Ruth's chair. He reached up and patted her hand. "Grandma, stay," he said. "Family." Ruth pulled him onto her lap and held him close, tears streaming down her face. "Yeah, baby," she whispered. "Family." At 9:15 p.m., after Noah was asleep and Ruth had retired to her room, Marcus led Destiny back to the garden. The same stone bench, the same magnolia tree. But everything felt different now. "I want to show you something," he said. He pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. A news article. Hawk Technologies files for bankruptcy. Former COO Bradley Cole faces federal charges. Company assets to be liquidated. Destiny stared at the headline. "It's really over. It's really over." Marcus put the phone away. "Victoria is in custody awaiting trial. Bradley is facing his own charges. The company that tried to destroy us is gone." He took her hands. "We won, Destiny. We actually won." "I never thought about winning." She looked up at him. "I just thought about surviving." "Well, you did both." He pulled her closer. "And now we get to do something even harder." "What's that live?" His forehead touched hers. "Really live. Without fear. Without looking over our shoulders. Just us. Our family. Our future." "That sounds terrifying." "I know." He smiled. "But I think we can handle it. Together." Destiny reached up and traced the lines of his face lines that had been carved by grief and smoothed by hope. "Together," she agreed. The kiss this time was different. Deeper. A promise sealed without words. Above them, the stars scattered across the sky like witnesses to something sacred. And somewhere in the house, Noah stirred in his sleep and smiled. 1 year later, Destiny stood at a podium in the Atlanta Convention Center, her hands trembling against the wooden surface, her heart pounding so loud she was certain the microphone would pick it up. The room held 300 people, social workers, child advocates, policymakers, judges, all of them waiting for her to speak. At 9:15 a.m., she cleared her throat and began. "My name is Destiny Carter. 1 year ago, I was cleaning windows in a mansion trying to make enough money to pay my grandmother's medical bills. I had no credentials, no degrees, no fancy titles after my name." She paused, letting the words settle. "But I had something else. I had a brother named Jerome who never spoke a word in his entire life, but taught me more about communication than any textbook ever could. I had a grandmother who raised me on faith and fried chicken and the belief that every child deserves to be seen. And I had a broken heart that somehow recognized another broken heart when I found a 7-year-old boy screaming alone on a floor while everyone else looked away." The room was silent. 300 people holding their breath. "That boy is my son now, not by blood, but by bond. His name is Noah, and he's sitting in the front row with his father and his great-grandmother, probably wondering why Mama is talking so much when she could be home making pancakes." Laughter rippled through the audience. Destiny looked at the front row and found Noah waving at her, his face split in a grin. Marcus sat beside him, tears already streaming down his cheeks. Ruth held Noah's other hand, her Bible clutched in her lap, like armor. "I'm not here to tell you I have all the answers," Destiny continued. "I'm here to tell you that the answers we've been using aren't working. Children like Noah fall through the cracks every single day because our system was built by people who never learned to listen to silence, who never understood that communication isn't just about words, who never sat with a child in their fear and let them know they weren't alone." She gripped the podium harder. "We can do better. We have to do better. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure we do." The applause started slowly, then built into a roar. People rose to their feet, 300 strangers standing for a woman who had once been invisible. But Destiny only had eyes for the 3 people in the front row. her family, her heart, her home. After the speech at 10:47 a.m., chaos erupted in the hallway outside the convention center. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashed, questions flew from every direction. But Destiny had learned how to handle this now. She smiled, gave brief answers, and kept moving toward the exit where Marcus waited with Noah and Ruth. Then a voice cut through the noise. "Miss Carter Destiny." She turned. A young woman, maybe 25, pushed through the crowd. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands clutching a photograph. "Please," the woman said, her voice breaking. "I need to talk to you, please." Security moved to intercept her, but Destiny held up her hand. Something in the woman's face stopped her cold. "It's okay," Destiny said. "Let her through." The woman stumbled forward, tears streaming down her cheeks. She thrust the photograph toward Destiny with shaking hands. "This is my daughter, Lily. She's 5. She's autistic nonverbal, just like your son was, and CPS is trying to take her from me." Destiny's blood ran cold. "What? They say I'm not capable. They say I don't have the resources, but I love her. I love her so much." The woman's voice cracked. "I heard your speech, and I thought maybe you could help. Maybe you could tell them that credentials don't matter as much as love. That I'm not failing her just because I'm poor." Destiny looked at the photograph. A little girl with dark curls and wide eyes clutching a stuffed rabbit. She looked exactly like Noah had in those early photos, distant, unreachable, alone in a crowd. "What's your name?" Destiny asked softly. "Maria. Maria Gonzalez." "Maria." Destiny took her hand. "I can't promise anything, but I can promise I'll try. Give me your information. Tell me everything." Behind her, Marcus stepped forward. "We'll help," he said. "Whatever it takes. Legal fees, advocacy, whatever she needs." Maria's face crumpled. "I can't afford to pay you back." "You won't have to." Marcus looked at Destiny, and something passed between them. "This is what we do now. This is who we are." At 2:30 p.m. that afternoon, Destiny sat in her new office at the Child Welfare Advisory Board headquarters, Maria Gonzalez's files spread across her desk. The case was a nightmare. Maria had been flagged for neglect because her apartment was small, because she worked 2 jobs and couldn't always afford a full-time caregiver, because Lily had been found wandering in the hallway once while Maria was asleep after a 16-hour shift. None of it was abuse. All of it was poverty. Sandra Griffin, who had stayed on as the family's attorney, sat across from Destiny, reviewing the documents. "It's textbook overreach," Sandra said. "The caseworker is young, inexperienced. She followed the letter of the law without understanding the spirit. We can fight this." "How long? 6 weeks? Maybe 8? The system moves slow." "Lily doesn't have 6 weeks." Destiny's voice was sharp. "She's already been in foster care for 2 months. Do you know what that does to a child like her? Being ripped away from the only person who understands her signals, the only voice she trusts. I know. Believe me, I know." Sandra leaned forward. "But we have to do this right. If we push too hard too fast, we risk making enemies who can block us later. And if we don't push hard enough, that little girl loses her mother." The door opened. Marcus stepped in Noah beside him. "How's it going?" Marcus asked. Slowly. Destiny rubbed her temples. "The system is designed to crush people like Maria. She doesn't have money. She doesn't have connections. She doesn't have anyone to fight for her. She has you. That's not enough. Then we make it enough." Marcus sat down beside her. "What do you need? Resources, publicity. I'll buy a newspaper if that's what it takes." Despite everything, Destiny laughed. "You can't solve every problem with money." "No, but I can make problems very uncomfortable until they solve themselves." Noah tugged on Destiny's sleeve. She looked down at him. "Sad lady," he said. "Maria, sad like me was." Destiny's throat tightened. "Yeah, baby. She's sad and scared. We help." Noah's voice was certain. "Like Mama helped me." She pulled him into her arms and held him tight. "Yeah, baby. We help. That's what family does." The breakthrough came at 4:15 p.m. the next day. Destiny was reviewing Maria's case for the 100th time when her phone rang. The caller ID showed Judge Monroe's office. "Miss Carter," the judge's voice was crisp. "I've been following the Gonzalez case. I understand you've taken an interest." "Yes, Your Honor. The situation is unjust. I know." Judge Monroe paused. "I've reviewed the file. The original removal was procedurally questionable. I'm scheduling an emergency hearing for tomorrow morning. I want you there as an expert witness." Destiny's heart stopped. "Your Honor, I'm not qualified to—" "You're on the State Advisory Board now, Miss Carter. That makes you qualified. More importantly, you understand what that child is going through in a way no one else in that courtroom will." Another pause. "Don't argue with me. Just be there." The line went dead. Destiny sat frozen for a long moment. Then she picked up her phone and called Maria. "Maria, it's Destiny. I need you to listen very carefully. We have a hearing tomorrow morning, and I think we're going to get your daughter back." The scream of joy on the other end of the line made every difficult moment worth it. At 8:45 a.m. the next morning, the courtroom was packed. Maria sat at the table beside Sandra, her hands clasped so tight her knuckles were white. Across the aisle, the CPS attorney looked uncomfortable, shuffling papers and avoiding eye contact. Judge Monroe entered, and everyone rose. "Be seated." The judge's voice was all business. "We're here regarding the emergency petition for reunification in the matter of Lily Gonzalez. Miss Carter, I understand you wish to offer testimony." Destiny stood. Her legs felt like water, but her voice was steady. "Yes, Your Honor." She walked to the witness stand and was sworn in. The familiar ritual calmed her nerves. "Miss Carter," Judge Monroe began, "you've reviewed this case. What is your assessment? This case should never have resulted in removal." Destiny's voice rang clear. "Maria Gonzalez is not a negligent mother. She's a struggling mother. There's a difference." "Explain." "Lily was found in the hallway of their apartment building once. Maria was asleep after working a double shift because she's trying to pay for therapy services the state doesn't adequately cover. She didn't abandon her child. She didn't abuse her child. She fell asleep because human beings need sleep, especially when they're working 80 hours a week to keep a roof over their heads." Destiny leaned forward. "I know what it's like to care for a nonverbal autistic child. I know the exhaustion. I know the fear. I know the constant vigilance it requires. And I know that Maria has been doing all of that alone, without resources, without support, without anyone in her corner. The fact that she's kept that little girl alive and loved and cared for under those circumstances isn't evidence of failure. It's evidence of extraordinary devotion." The CPS attorney stood. "Objection. The witness is not qualified to—" "Overruled." Judge Monroe's voice was ice. "Miss Carter serves on the State Advisory Board specifically because of her expertise in this area. Continue, Miss Carter." "Thank you, Your Honor." Destiny turned to face Maria directly. "I've seen the photos of Lily's room, the communication boards Maria made by hand, the sensory toys she bought at thrift stores and modified herself, the detailed logs she keeps of Lily's diet, her sleep patterns, her behavioral triggers. This is not a mother who doesn't care. This is a mother who is doing everything humanly possible with nothing." She turned back to the judge. "The system failed Maria Gonzalez. It failed Lily Gonzalez. And if we don't fix this today, we'll be telling every struggling parent in this state that love doesn't matter if you can't afford the right paperwork." The courtroom was silent. Judge Monroe studied Destiny for a long moment. Then she turned to the CPS attorney. "Does the state wish to respond?" The attorney shuffled papers, cleared his throat. The state withdraws its opposition to reunification." Maria made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. "Very well." Judge Monroe's gavel came down. "Lily Gonzalez is to be returned to her mother's custody immediately. Additionally, I'm ordering the state to provide support services, including respite care therapy coverage and housing assistance." She looked at Maria. "You're not alone anymore, Miss Gonzalez. Make sure you reach out when you need help." Maria nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Destiny stepped down from the witness stand, and Maria practically tackled her with a hug. "You saved her," Maria whispered. "You saved us." "No." Destiny held her tight. "You saved her. Every day for 5 years. I just reminded people to pay attention." At 11:30 a.m., Destiny walked out of the courthouse to find Marcus waiting by the car. He didn't say anything. He just opened his arms and she fell into them. "You were incredible," he murmured against her hair. "I was terrified." "That's what makes it incredible." She pulled back and looked at him. "How's Noah?" "With Ruth. They're making cookies. She's teaching him to crack eggs without getting shells everywhere." Marcus smiled. "He's getting pretty good." "Good." Destiny took a shaky breath. "I want to go home." "Then let's go home." The drive was quiet. Destiny watched the city pass by outside the window, her mind still spinning from the morning's events. One case, one victory. But how many more were out there? How many Mariahs? How many Lilies? How many children slipping through cracks that should never have existed? "You're thinking too hard," Marcus said. "I'm always thinking too hard." "I know. It's one of the things I love about you." She turned to look at him. "You love me." He glanced at her, surprised. "I thought that was obvious." "You've never said it." The car slowed to a stop at a red light. Marcus turned to face her fully. "Destiny Carter, I love you. I've loved you since the day you walked into my son's room and refused to let him suffer alone. I've loved you through trials and tabloids and threats on your life. I've loved you every morning when I wake up and every night when I fall asleep." His voice was rough with emotion. "I love you, and if you need me to say it every day for the rest of our lives, I will." Destiny's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too. I've been afraid to say it." "Why?" "Because everyone I've ever loved has left, or been taken. And I thought if I didn't say the words, maybe this time would be different." Marcus reached over and took her hand. "I'm not going anywhere. Neither are you. We're stuck with each other. That doesn't sound so bad. It sounds perfect." The light turned green, but neither of them moved for a long moment. At 6:00 p.m., the whole family gathered in the backyard for what Ruth declared was a celebration dinner. Noah ran in circles around the yard chasing fireflies as they emerged in the twilight. Ruth supervised the grill while Marcus tried to convince her that he could flip burgers without setting anything on fire. Destiny sat on the porch swing, watching it all, her heart so full it hurt. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maria. "Lily is home." She ran straight to her room and hugged her stuffed rabbit for an hour. "Thank you for giving me my life back." Destiny typed back, "You did the hard part. You never gave up on her." Then she put the phone away and let herself be present. Just for now, just for this moment. Noah bounded up to the porch, breathless and grinning. "Mama Firefly!" He opened his cupped hands and a tiny light pulsed inside. "Beautiful baby, you caught one. Let go now." Noah opened his hands and watched the firefly drift away. Free, happy. Destiny pulled him onto her lap and kissed his hair. "You're getting so wise, you know that," Grandma Ruth says. Noah leaned against her chest. "Says I'm old soul." Grandma Ruth is usually right. Marcus walked over 2 plates in his hands. "Dinner is served. Ruth only criticized my burger flipping technique 7 times, which I consider a personal victory." "It was 8 times, Ruth called from the grill. "I let one slide because you looked pitiful." Everyone laughed. Noah clapped his hands. And Destiny thought, this is it. This is what I was looking for, my whole life, without knowing it. Home. After dinner at 8:30 p.m., Marcus asked Destiny to take a walk with him. They wandered through the garden past the roses and the magnolias to a spot near the old stone wall where the moonlight fell in silver patterns. "I have something for you," Marcus said. Destiny's heart skipped. "Marcus, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. This was Grace's. She left it to me when she died with instructions that I'd know when the time was right to give it to someone else. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, not a diamond but an opal swirling with colors that shifted in the moonlight. She said opals were like people. Marcus continued, his voice thick. That the most beautiful ones weren't perfect. They were full of fire and hidden depths and unexpected light. He looked at Destiny. That's you. That's exactly you. Destiny couldn't breathe. Marcus, are you? I'm asking you to marry me. He dropped to one knee, his eyes never leaving her face. Not because it's expected. Not because of Noah. Not because of anything except that I can't imagine spending another day of my life without you officially, permanently, legally, eternally by my side. Tears streamed down Destiny's face. I'm scared. I know. I don't know how to be someone's wife. I don't know how to be someone's husband anymore. We'll figure it out together. What if I mess it up? Then we'll mess it up together and clean it up together and start over as many times as we need to. Marcus reached for her hand. That's what love is, Destiny. It's not getting it right. It's staying when you get it wrong. She looked at the ring, at him, at the life stretching out before them, terrifying and beautiful and full of possibility. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Yes. Louder, now certain. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll mess it up with you. Yes, I'll stay. Marcus slid the ring onto her finger and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with everything he had. From the house, Noah's voice carried across the yard. Mama Dada, Grandma Ruth says come inside. She made pie. They broke apart, laughing and crying at the same time. We should go, Destiny said. We should. But Marcus didn't let go. Thank you. For what? For saying yes, for staying, for walking into my house one day and saving all of us. Destiny touched his face. You saved me too. You just don't know it yet. At 10:00 p.m., after pie and celebration and Noah's bedtime routine, Destiny sat alone in the living room staring at the ring on her finger. Ruth found her there. Can't sleep. Destiny shook her head. Too much happening in here. She tapped her temple. Ruth settled into the chair beside her with a grunt. I remember when your grandfather proposed. Scared me half to death. I thought, this man is crazy. He doesn't know what he's getting into. But he did. He knew exactly what he was getting into, and he wanted it anyway. How did you know it was right? I didn't. Ruth's voice was gentle. Not for a long time. Love isn't a feeling, baby. It's a decision. You decide to stay when staying is hard. You decide to forgive when forgiveness feels impossible. You decide every single day that this person is worth the fight. And if I can't, then you learn. That's all any of us can do. Ruth reached over and took her hand. Your mother never learned. She let fear win. But you're not your mother, Destiny. You're stronger. You're braver. And you've got something she never had. What's that? People who won't let you run. Ruth squeezed her hand. We're not going anywhere. None of us. You're stuck with this crazy family now. Destiny laughed, but it came out wet. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, baby girl. Now go to bed. You've got a life to build. 6 months later, on a perfect autumn afternoon, Destiny Carter became Destiny Sterling. The ceremony was small, just family and close friends in the backyard of the mansion where everything had begun. Ruth officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for the occasion. Dr. Mitchell stood as Destiny's witness. Lionel Hatch stood as Marcus's. And Noah served as ring-bearer, walking down the aisle with the careful concentration of a boy who knew this moment mattered. At 3:15 p.m., under a canopy of golden leaves, Destiny and Marcus exchanged vows they had written themselves. I promise to listen to your silence, Destiny said, her voice steady, to stay when staying is hard, to fight for you and with you and beside you, to never stop believing that love is worth every risk. Marcus's voice broke as he spoke. I promise to see you, every day, the real you, the scared you, the brave you, all of you. I promise to never let you feel invisible again, and I promise that whatever comes, we face it together, always together. Ruth declared them married at 3:23 p.m. The kiss was sweet and long and full of promise, and when they turned to face their small audience, Noah was the first to cheer. "Mama and Dada married," he shouted. "Family forever, family forever." Marcus agreed, lifting his son into his arms. Destiny wrapped her arms around both of them, her husband, her son, her heart, and let the tears fall. Family forever. The reception lasted until evening, full of laughter and dancing and Ruth's legendary cooking. Dr. Mitchell gave a toast that made everyone cry. Lionel told embarrassing stories about Marcus's early parenting attempts, and Noah gave a speech consisting of exactly 4 words that brought the house down. "I love my family." At 8:00 p.m., as the party wound down, Destiny slipped away to the garden. She needed a moment alone, a moment to breathe, a moment to absorb the magnitude of what her life had become. She walked to the spot where Marcus had proposed and sat on the stone bench looking up at the stars. "Jerome," she whispered to the sky, "I wish you could see this. I wish you could meet Noah. You'd love him. He's just like you were, quiet and deep and so full of love it spills over." The wind rustled through the trees, and Destiny could almost imagine it was an answer. "I kept my promise," she continued. "I didn't walk away. I stayed, and it turned out okay. Better than okay. It turned out beautiful." Footsteps approached. She turned to find Noah standing behind her, still in his tiny suit from the ceremony. "Mama talking to Sky. I'm talking to someone I loved who's not here anymore." Noah considered this. Then he walked over and sat beside her, leaning his head against her arm. "Jerome," he said. Destiny's breath caught. "How do you know that name?" "Grandma Ruth told me. Said he was my uncle. Said he's watching from heaven." Tears spilled down Destiny's cheeks. "That's right, he's watching." Noah looked up at the stars. Then he raised one small hand and waved. "Hi, Uncle Jerome," he said clearly. "Thank you for Mama. She's the best." Destiny pulled her son close and held him as the stars blazed overhead. 1 year later, Destiny stood in the community center she had helped fund, watching children with various abilities play together in a space designed specifically for them. The Destiny and Jerome Carter Center for Special Needs Children had opened 6 months ago. It offered free therapy services, respite care for exhausted parents, sensory-friendly play spaces, and support groups for families navigating the system. Maria Gonzalez worked there now as a family advocate. Lily played in the sensory room every afternoon, while her mother helped other parents find the resources they needed. At 4:30 p.m., Destiny gathered the staff for their weekly meeting. "We've served 200 families this quarter," she announced. "We've helped 43 children stay with their parents who might otherwise have been removed. We've trained 62 caseworkers in trauma-informed approaches, and we've changed 27 policies at the state level." Applause erupted around the table. "But we're not done," Destiny continued. "We're never done, because somewhere right now there's a child screaming in an empty room. There's a parent crying in a hallway. There's a family falling through cracks that we haven't filled yet." Her voice strengthened. "So we keep going, we keep pushing, we keep fighting, because that's what love does. It shows up, every single day, no matter what." After the meeting, Marcus found her in her office. "You ready to go home?" She looked around at the space she had built, at the photos on the walls of children she had helped, at the letters from parents, thanking her for changing their lives. "Yeah," she said, "I'm ready." They walked out together, hand in hand, into the golden afternoon light. At 7:00 p.m., the Sterling family sat down for dinner in their home. Ruth said grace, as she did every night. Noah reported on his day at school, where he had made 2 friends and only had one small meltdown that his teacher helped him through. Marcus talked about a new project at work, and Destiny shared the day's victories from the center. It was ordinary. It was beautiful. It was everything. After dinner, Noah asked to play the piano. Marcus had been teaching him for months. The progress was slow, but Noah loved it, loved the order of the keys, the patterns in the music, the way sound could express things words couldn't. He sat at the bench, small hands positioned carefully, and began to play. It was simple, a nursery rhyme, halting and imperfect. but he made it through to the end without stopping, and when he finished, he turned around with a triumphant smile. "Good job, buddy," Marcus said, his voice rough. "Grace song," Noah said. "Mama Grace taught Dada. Dada taught me." Destiny's hand flew to her mouth. She looked at Marcus, whose eyes had filled with tears. "You taught him Grace's song?" He asked. Marcus's voice broke. He wanted to learn something she loved. Noah walked over to Destiny and took her hand. "Two mamas," he said. "Heart Mama Grace, home Mama Destiny. Both love me." Destiny knelt down and pulled him close. "That's right, baby. You have so many people who love you, and you always will." At 9:30 p.m., after Noah was asleep, Destiny stood at the window of their bedroom, looking out at the night sky. Marcus came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking about how different everything is from where I started." She leaned back against him. "I was invisible. I was alone. I was cleaning windows and praying for enough money to get through another month. And now I have everything. A family, a purpose, a love I never thought I deserved." She turned in his arms to face him. "How did this happen?" "You happened." Marcus touched her face. "You walked into a broken house and refused to let it stay broken. You heard a child crying and ran toward him instead of away. You saw something worth saving and you saved it. I didn't do it alone. Neither did I." He kissed her forehead. "That's the point. None of us can do it alone. We need each other. Shh. We need people who stay." Destiny smiled. "I'm staying." "I know." Marcus smiled back. "So am I." The next morning at 7:00 a.m., Destiny woke to find a note on her pillow. "Come to Noah's room. Bring tissues." She got up, heart pounding, and walked down the hall. The door to Noah's room was open. Inside, Marcus stood by the window. Ruth sat in the rocking chair. And Noah stood in the center of the room holding a piece of paper. "Mama!" His face lit up when he saw her. "I made something. For you." He handed her the paper. It was a drawing crayon on construction paper of 5 figures holding hands. "That's Dada." Noah pointed to the tallest figure. "That's Grandma Ruth. That's me. That's Mama Destiny." He pointed to the last figure smaller than the others drawn in yellow crayon. "And that's Uncle Jerome, in heaven, but still family." Destiny's knees gave out. She sank to the floor, clutching the drawing tears streaming down her face. Marcus was beside her in an instant, holding her up. Ruth was praying softly, and Noah was there, his small arms wrapped around her neck. "Don't cry, Mama. It's happy picture." "I know, baby." She kissed his cheek. "These are happy tears, the best kind." "Jerome is family," Noah said with certainty. "You said, family forever." "Family forever," Destiny agreed. She looked around at the people gathered in this room. Her husband, her son, her grandmother, and somewhere watching from beyond, her brother. Against all odds, against every obstacle, against the voices that said she didn't belong, that she wasn't enough, that love was a luxury she couldn't afford. She had found her place. She had found her people. She had found home. And as the morning sun poured through the window, Destiny Carter Sterling finally understood the truth that had been waiting for her all along. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just showing up and staying. Sometimes it's sitting in the silence with someone until they feel safe enough to speak. Sometimes it's believing in people when no one else will. Love isn't earned. It isn't bought. It isn't something you have to deserve. Love is a choice. A daily, difficult, beautiful choice to stay when staying is hard. And family isn't about blood or paperwork or perfect circumstances. Family is about showing up. Every single day, no matter what. Destiny looked at her family gathered in the golden morning light, and she knew with absolute certainty that this was exactly where she was meant to be. Not because the universe owed her happiness, but because she had chosen it. She had fought for it. She had stayed. And that made all the difference.